Hello everyone. I am T. Kavi Akalya from 3rd BCom General, Mahalakshmi Women's College of Arts and Science. Welcome to the marathon of book reading in the name of Search the Roots. Now I am going to give the review of book The Dusk. It was a short story. It was written by Saki. Saki was the pen name of British writer who is considered as master of short story. His witty story are characterized by lifelike characters and fine narratives. Now, let's get into the story. Norman Godsby sat on the bench in a corner of the Hyde Park with his back to a fenced area of grass planted with bushes. It was dusk, about 30 minutes past 6 on an early March evening. The atmosphere was a mixture of falling daylight, pale moonlight, and light from the street lamps a little distance away. On the bench by his side sat an elderly gentleman. He had the expression of a defeated person who refused to admit his defeat. His clothes were neither expensive nor new. As he got up to go, Godspy imagined him to be a man in whom no one was particularly interested either at home or outside. As his figures disappeared slowly into the shadow, his place on the bench was taken almost immediately by a young man, very well dressed but not more cheerful than the man who had sat there before, as if to emphasize the fact that he was deeply troubled and unhappy. The newcomer uttered a curse or two as he threw himself into the seat. "You don't seem in a very good temper," said Godspy, judging that he was expected to show sympathy. The young man turned to him with a look of great frankness, which put Godspy instantly on his guard. "You won't be in a good temper if you were in the fix that I am in," he said. "I have done the silliest thing I have ever done in my life." "Yes," said Godspy, without much enthusiasm. "I came up to London this afternoon intending to stay at Patagonia Hotel in Berkshire Square," continued the young man. "When I got there, I found that he had hotel been pulled down some weeks ago and a cinema theater had been put into its place. The taxi driver recommended me to another hotel some way off and I went there. I just sent a letter of my people giving them address and then I went to buy some soap. I did forget to pack any and I hate using hotel soap. Then I stole the soap and when I thought of turning my step back to the hotel, I suddenly realized that I didn't remember its name or even the street it was in. Now that's a nice situation for a fellow to be in, who hasn't any friends or connections in London. I am without any money, came out with only a shilling on me, which went in buying the soap and the drink. So here I am wandering about the two pence in the pocket and nowhere to go for the night." There was a meaningful pause after the store. He had been told, "I suppose you think I have made up an impossible cock and bull story for you," said the young man presently in a hurt voice. "Not at all impossible," said Godspy carefully. "I remember doing exactly the same thing once in a foreign city, and on that occasion there were two of us. Luckily, we remembered that the hotel was on the sort of canal. So, when we came across the canal, we were able to make our way back to the hotel." The youth brightened up the little on hearing this. "In a foreign city, I would mind so much," he said. "One could go to one's console and get the required help for him. Here is one own land, one is far more helpless if one gets into a fix like this, unless I can find some decent chap to swallow my story and lend me some money. I seem likely to spend the night on the bank of the Thames. I am glad, however, that you don't think the story totally improvable. He threw a great deal of warmth into the last remark, as if perhaps to indicate his hope the Godspy himself might be such a decent chum. Of course, said Godspy slowly. The weak point of your story is that you can't show me the soap. The young man sat forward hurriedly, felt rapidly in the pockets of his overcoat, and then jumped to his feet. I must have lost it, he muttered angrily. To lose a hotel as well as cake of soap on the same afternoon suggested wilful carelessness, said Gorsby, but the young man did not wait to hear the end of the remark. He hurried away down the path, his head held high, with an expression of well practiced anger and pride. It was a pity, though, Godspeed to himself, the bit about going out to buy one's own soap was the one convincing part of the whole story, and yet it was just that little detail that brought him to grief. If he had the brilliant forethought to provide himself with a newly bought cake of soap, he would have been a genius in his particular profession. With this thought, Godspy rose to go. As he did so, he gave a cry of surprise and anxiety. Lying on the ground by the side of the bench was a small packet. It was a newly bought cake of soap. It has obviously fallen out of the young man's overcoat pocket. When he threw himself down on the seat, in another moment, Godspy was rushing along the half dark path, anxiously looking for a youthful figure in a light overcoat. He had nearly given up the search when he caught sight of the young man standing uncertainly on the board of the road, evidently trying to deciding which way to go. When Godspike called him, he returned sharply with an expression of challenge. The important witness to the truth of your story has now appeared, said Godspike, holding out the cake of soap. It was have slipped out of the overcoat pocket when you sat down on the seat. I saw it on the ground after you left. You must excuse my early disbelief, but appearances were really rather against you. And now, if the loan of sovereign is any good to you, the young man replied by taking the coin hastily and pocketing it. Here is my card with my address, continued Godspy. You can return the money any day this week. And here is the soap. Don't lose it again. It has been a good friend to you. Lucky thing you finding it, said the youth, and then, as if finding it difficult to speak, he uttered a word or two of thanks and hurried away in the direction of Knightsbridge. Poor boy, he nearly broke down, and Gospey said to himself, I am not surprised. It must have been such a great relief to him. It's a lesson to me not to be too clearly in judging people by circumstance. As Gospey walked back to his seat in a park, he saw an elderly gentleman looking and feeling with his hand beneath the bench and all around it. Gospey they recognized him as the man who had sat there before. The young man, have you lost anything, sir? He asked. Yes, sir, a cake of soap. His lesson that he had learned of not to be too hasty in judging someone. Well, what an amazing end to an lovely, interesting story. I am sure you would have loved it. And I hope you have learned something through this story. Thank you.